Hey everyone, I wanted to talk today about Fallout 3, probably definitely one of my favorite RPGs, and honestly my favorite Fallout game of the series. It's a weird thing for me, I tried playing the old Fallout games and couldn't really get into them because of the gameplay. I played the, modern Fallout games, and I find the writing and the setting to be just so, I don't know, derivative maybe is the right word. But Fallout 3 for some reason was right in the center and right in the middle and just right for me. I remember when I was walking through the store and I was looking at the games on the shelves, I saw, the cover of Fallout 3, and there's this guy in the armor and it's all dark and whatever, and you flip it over and you have the Pip-Boy and you're like, oh, okay, it's the contrast of the whole 1960s optimism with the serious tone of the Wasteland. It's that silly, serious dichotomy that they kind of play around with. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, cool. Yeah, I know I could totally get into this. And it's where I don't know. I like it where you have that essence of innocence and silliness. And you have that essence of silliness contrasted with the seriousness of the situation. That you have the little Pip-Boy guy, and he's like the silly, funny part in like the awful wasteland. And it's kind of like, your companion character, like Navi, or in any monomyth, you have that support character. He's not actually sentient, but it's kind of nice to see that. It's refreshing because it's like, okay, this is a serious RPG shooter, but we're kind of being silly and creative with it. That's what I really honestly appreciate, and I think it's a sign of creativity. Also, this intro is really interesting. You have the whole setup. What is the vault life like? Who are your friends, your family, and then your dad has this whole thing about the the biblical thing about the Alpha and Omega. I also thought it was so smart that when you're a baby, you get to choose all your stats from your strength to your whatever. And that's done through like a children's book, basically. And like, that's such a smart, funny thing to do. And then as you grow up, you basically have all the other stats when you leave the vault. I think it asks you to reconfirm and redistribute your points again. I remember I vacillated a lot when I started a new playthrough. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do right, a lot of things you can do wrong. I think the ones where you can be like swift learner, or every time you read a book, something, it adds like twice as many points than it usually would to your EXP. Things like that are really important. And it is very easy to vacillate and load an old save, but I learned the hard way not to do that and just like bite your decisions and move on. And then, yeah, as soon as you leave the vault, you're kind of thrust into the wasteland, and it's so different. And then you meet, Dogmeat and, all these other kind of characters by Megaton, and you have, the Church of Adam and all this stuff. And I just thought it was the perfect mix of silliness and seriousness, that, you have kind of weird characters, but they are in this totally insane wasteland. And the entire atmosphere of the game is really, I don't know, it's very distinct. What of course does help it a lot is, of course, the radio. When you use the radio to bring up Galaxy News Radio and have all those old songs, it really sets the tone for this game. It's such a distinct vibe and mood that I'm not sure what to say. It's such a, this to me is the ultimate Fallout experience. I've played the other sequels and it just feels derivative of them. And so this opening here in Fallout 3 is probably the most distinct experience. And so you have, the wasteland itself, it's filled with all kinds of dangerous enemies, and you can run into very high level enemies and, like a proper open world, and they can totally destroy you. Like, you run into a Deathclaw and you very quickly learn, okay, don't mess with those guys. You learn certain enemies' weaknesses, or you find that one weapon that's like, oh, okay, you can use this to basically just, one-shot everything. Once you get the hunting rifle or the shotgun, you're like, oh, okay. The one thing that threw me off is that I realized this was a rated M for mature game, but I was like, okay, the arms, are sliced off, or the head might sometimes come off. But I remember I stuck up on the Overseer, and I ended up shooting him in the head with the 9mm pistol, and it did the one effect where the head explodes, and I was like shocked. I was like, that didn't just happen, did it? And it took me a while to kind of get over that, because I understand and that's the weird thing with these games, because with Bethesda games, like there's gore, but there's not really gore. Someone loses an arm or leg, it's like whatever. Someone's head friggin' explodes, or you get the bloody mess perk. That's something that's like, oh, I didn't realize that was in the game, because literally I rented it, just off the shelf. Like I have no idea what this is, and it just looked cool and interesting. And that's a different era where, yes, you had the internet, but a lot of the times you just find stuff on the shelf and say, hey, I'm going to rent this, I'm going to see what it's like, and you'd find this crazy cool game. God, I also Fallout 3 is probably one of a few Bethesda games I probably fully 100%. I did all the DLC, I did all the quests, everything, got all the armor, weapons, upgrades, whatnot, and just went absolutely full and discovered everything on the map. And I don't usually do that. I especially don't do that now for any RPG I play. But it's really good. And also just learning the interface, the different, weapons. I think this is one of the first games I played that had a very significant durability stat, that your weapons can break and you have to repair them and stuff. It's I don't know, to me this is still the ultimate Fallout experience. I'd still like to go back to the old ones and give them a fair shake, simply because I'm sure the writing is better, and that's really what I'm looking for now. Things like the fact they have these things called Nuka-Cola and all the currencies and bottle caps, this whole lore and world that they've built. They have these two-headed cows, they have ghouls, people exposed to radiation who don't die but looked like they should be dead, basically zombies. You have doctors who are the most probably sought after and important people in the wasteland. And then you have there's the whole lock picking minigame, which I actually really enjoy. I think it's very fun and very easy. It's just like two sticks rotating around, rather than in Oblivion or something you have to like go up and down on each one and lock it in. I think Skyrim became more simplified like this one as well. But yeah, the main story of the game is actually not bad. I know there's some people who complain about certain aspects of it, but the prevailing kind of theme that comes out is honestly surprisingly it's based on biblical preachings and things like this. So what it is that you basically are trying to create a water purifier for the wasteland. One of the issues is that everything is irradiated. So every water that you drink or whatever, you can restore HP, but you will get radiation poisoning. That's a different stat you have to manage. If you get 200 rads, then you start suffering from it, and then there's certain, your health will go down or won't be as large. There'll be other things that will be affected, and of course, if you hit 1,000 out of 1,000 rads, you just die. And of course, there are ways to take this away, like Rad-X and other things like that. And it's interesting to see the twisting and turning, very levels of side quests. But the main quest itself is basically, you're trying to bring the waters of life back into the area, and to basically get your hands on the water purifier and install it at the water treatment plant is basically the main goal. And it has this whole message about the waters of life, and you're also trying to find your father, who is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, right? And that kind of symbology and story is all very somber, while the Pip-Boy is always happy. I would say that the atmosphere in Fallout 3 really strikes me. It's something that I can immediately get lost in. The the background soundtrack is great in the world. When you're just roaming around, it has kind of like a almost Wild West vibe to it. And then it has the creepy kind of. They're all very kind of ambient themes. especially when you enter things like abandoned apartment buildings or whatever. For me, I'm just thinking back on my playthrough. My favorite weapon is, well, once you got into, I think, the workshop or something, you could learn how to fuse weapons, and you got your engineering skill or something high enough. You could make a flaming sword with a flamethrower and a sword called a shish kebab. That was definitely my favorite weapon, along with the sniper rifle. There are so many varieties of different weapons in this game, from submachine guns to flamethrowers to rocket launchers to Gatling guns to all sorts of things. It's all really, really cool. This game also did, I guess, set the standard for every Fallout game that came out after it, or that has come out for the last, 10 years, before they swapped from 2D. Fighting the raiders and, seeing that really sort of, how messed up they were. That was definitely an experience, coming across the supermarket, figuring out, oh, there's no booby traps everywhere. Another memorable mission or quest was when you had to, there were like the druids living in the last forest in the wasteland, and you had this like talking tree that made you go on a spirit journey. That was definitely pretty crazy, pretty interesting. There was also the battle for Camp Little Light or something. There's this one place where you the big battle in Small Town, or Big Town it was called, where you had this one town that was being attacked by super mutants, and you had to sneak all the way to this compound where super mutants had kidnapped these people, and you had to free them and bring them back to the town and then brace the town for an attack. That was really cool. Of course, in the main quest, or I think this was in the Brotherhood of Steel DLC, you had this Liberty Prime giant mech went through the downtown area, blasting everything with huge explosions, having this all-out battle. That was really cool. I guess I might as well talk about the DLCs. Operation Anchorage was pretty underwhelming. You basically just go to a new map that's actually in a VR thing, as I recall, and you just get different types of equipment and ammo and whatever, and you just fulfill that mission. It's very straightforward. It's just more gameplay, not a lot of story. Brotherhood of Steel, as I was saying, it adds a whole new sort of template onto the game. You can do all this new cool stuff. You can get your own power armor, or you could in the base game, but now a different one. And I remember there's this one section where you get to see like the Brotherhood sort of base. There's also the swamp one. I forget what it's called. That was kind of cool and kind of weird. They had different kinds of shotguns and other things there, but it was kind of very cryptid focused, which was kind of cool. You kind of had this mansion on the hill, and you had to kind of figure out what the mystery was and whatever. And you had a kind of like hillbilly vibe with the whole thing, which I thought was pretty funny. Outside of that, Mothership Zeta, of course. That was really fun. I really liked Mothership Zeta. It was really cool how they actually did space, and they had a really compelling narrative. I was kind of expecting it to be kind of cheesy, honestly, when I went into it, but it was really fun, and the alien weapons are really, really cool. And I think you end up blasting a crater from space, which was really neat. Some basic gameplay mechanics when I first played this game that really surprised me were things like VATS. VATS just felt so good, and definitely something that really, I would say, almost saved this game. If this game did not have VATS, I would not be playing it. It is just way too much fun to stop time, target a person's body part or limb, and try to kill them or disable them. It has this really cool cinematic effect. That was all new at the time, and I remember it really impacted me. It was like, oh, this was really, really cool, and it became addicting to use. And of course, the more AP you got, and the more, I think, endurance you got, the more points you got to spend in bats. And so it was always super fun and super cool to go into a firefight and say, okay, I'm going to activate my VATS or whatever. It never got old, and that's what a lot of game developers aim to do with their games. They want to make something that just does not get old how many times you do it. Another thing that I really struggled with, because I was used to playing RPGs and things like that, where you had to scour for supplies. For some reason, I made the very bad decision that I thought when you went into a certain dungeon or place, you had to pick up everything. So there were like many areas where I would pick up every single item, every single can, no matter its value, because I thought, well, I can always sell it later. And it just became like a pattern for me until I realized I have way too many caps and way too many just tin cans like stored within my one locker and Megaton. And I just realized this was a not good decision. And I very quickly, I should have learned quickly that that is not the best way to play the game. It's also very funny that this game, you have so many different kind of healing items that give you rads, and they just seemingly are not worth it to eat when you could just like, drink fresh water when you can make it, or buy fresh water, or just rest when that's way more expedient, or use a stim pack. So there's a lot of things that are kind of useless. It is good that ammo and keys and key items don't take up a lot of weight in this game. Of course, people like to joke about things that shouldn't take up weight, like lockpicks and things that are, non-essential items, but even so, people complain that they shouldn't take up anything. I remember actually a funny thing about inventory management. I was so obsessed thinking I needed all this stuff that I think when I went to the supermarket area, I got all this stuff and I was over encumbered, and I didn't realize that at first the game was like, oh hey, you're over encumbered, you need to not do that, and now you're gonna be slow. And it's like, okay, I guess the game wants me slow now. So I actually walked all the way back over encumbered back to Megaton thinking that's what I was supposed to do, and then I very quickly, and then right after that I was like, okay, that's not how you play this game. It was pretty funny for me because I was like, oh okay, that's not what I anticipated or expected. I don't think there's any other RPG where I'm going to play it as fully and intensely as I did Fallout 3. I don't think I'm going to really review any of the other Fallout games simply because I don't really like them. Fallout 1 and 2, I might come back and give them another chance, but for now, I don't see that happening. Then there's Fallout New Vegas, which I think is a separate conversation, which I might actually talk a little bit about here. And then you have Fallout 4 onwards and Fallout 76. And I played Fallout 4 and it just felt so like it's more cell shaded and not as gritty. And I feel that the spirit of the silliness, quirkiness, or whatever of it just being a game for kids or something ended up being the major theme rather than a depressing wasteland. And I think that really started in New Vegas, actually, and we kind of see that trend onwards, and why there's a big Vegas Fallout 3 argument. Because when I first saw New Vegas, I thought, oh, this is another like DLC for Fallout 3, but it's like, oh no, this is a full brand new game. It's completely different. I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to buy a whole different game, and I can't carry all my stuff over from Fallout 3. I'm not going to bother doing that and starting a whole new Fallout experience. But I eventually got to playing around to playing New Vegas years later, and I got as far as meeting Caesar's Legion and doing the first couple main quests and meeting Mr. House. And I don't know what it is. I just never really vibed with it. I just never felt there was a sense of urgency. It was a very different story where you're trying to save, your father in the wasteland. It was very much just, hey, you're just a guy in this world, and you need to find a way to just survive and deal with these crazy characters. And for me, it just wasn't that interesting. And it seemed like the kind of quirky silliness was just more common. You in Fallout 3, the normal common thing is you find a bunch of raiders or cannibals that have been eating human flesh or torturing people in like a vault, and you've that's the common, thing. Or there's like a Chinese communist spy base, or super mutants or whatnot. And it was always very serious. First off, it was always like a dark fantasy. While New Vegas, it started to take this shift into a more, I don't know, self-centered, quirky fantasy. It's like, hey, it's the apocalypse, but Vegas is still booming, baby. Like, I get it. It's like silly. It's a joke. But that kind of becomes the common thing. Even though you have Caesar's Legion, which is like crucifying people, it's still kind of wacky and not believable. And that's when I felt like the Fallout series had a big shift, where they started, I would feel like, marketing their games for younger demographics, and for being less serious and more, hey, our games are for everyone. This is so crazy and silly that you're even in an apocalypse to begin with, so nothing's off the table. And Fallout 3, another great side quest that a lot of people remember is the Antonator and the Machinist or something, where you have this small town where some woman controls ants using ant pheromones, and some guy creates machines to do his bidding, and it's like these two superhero villains, and you have to figure out which one to side with and which one to take out. And it's something obviously made for silliness. Like, it's the one part in Fallout 3 where that silly kind of quirky experience comes out fully, and it's just unabased or unabashed by it, but it's still funny because it's surrounded by all this seriousness. While starting in Fallout New Vegas, you have seriousness engulfed in silliness, and that's, I think, the main thing that doesn't make the Fallout formula work in my opinion. You need to have a dark fantasy and then these characters that are full of light inside of it, not the other way around, or everything's all silly. In that case, it's just different. It's a very different experience. I don't know. I almost feel like Fallout 4 should have been called Fallout Fun or something. It should have been a spin-off game, in my view, not a direct continuation, because it feels so different. And Fallout 4, it just didn't have the same draw. I mean, you can build an open world, you can build this big, amazing, thing to explore and discover, but if you don't have a half decent good main quest, or a series of side quests that have a serious, interesting tone to them, then you're just participating in a whatever experience. And so that's kind of the reason why I don't really play the current Fallout games. They just don't grab me like they used to. I'm not going to go into a post-apocalyptic wasteland for the sake of going into it. I need there to be a tone or a vibe or something interesting besides that. I think it's also great that in this game you have a good variety of close combat and ranged weapons. Also, there's just crazy things, like I said, the shish kebab. You have, plasma weapons and laser rifles. You just have such a good variety of different types of weapons that makes you feel, oh, this is really cool. And the plasma rifle and laser rifle, for example, have different death animations if you get a critical hit and things like that. Trying to think back on my memories of this game, I think my go-to weapon for a while was definitely, like I said, the bolt action rifle, and then also the close combat shotgun. So it was like you didn't have to reload it after like 6 shots or something. Also, my main thing is that I loved getting into hacking and lockpicking. More so, I hate it immensely when I find some super secret base and there's some locked door and there's no way to find a key. It expects you to pick lock it, and it's like I have to make a mental note to come back there, and I hate that. So whenever I play any RPG now, because of Fallout 3, I always max up my lockpicking skills and then my hacking skills, simply because that is how I learned what I hated and what I didn't like to do in RPGs. I hate the feeling of getting a reward and then being it having be stuck behind a wall or something like that. You know, you can always upgrade your weapons, but then you just kill the enemy faster. And unless you're doing something like a speedrun, that's not really important. Also, I love the animations or little pictures for each one of these Pip-Boy perks. They're all very, you know, they're all very silly. And again, that takes a backseat to the tone of the game overall. You need a little bit of silliness to get that kind of unique experience from the Fallout series that I feel that it's honestly lost. I probably put in hundreds of hours into this game. It's probably one of the first RPGs that I really fully... you know, I mean, this is honestly one of the first open world RPGs I've ever played where, you know, they can argue it's an endless game because there's constantly respawning enemies and things like that. Oh, and of course, a very memorable quest, the Tenpenny Tower, launching the nuke. That was so cool. I'm pretty sure I definitely made a save just before that. So I could keep watching the nuke go off without actually having the bad karma to do so. And of course, yeah, the radio songs and the old-timey songs just add to the weirdness of the whole setting. It's funny, the following games, at least the one that I played, New Vegas, it had obviously different songs, but didn't have as many good ones besides Big Iron. Big Iron is the only one that stands out to me in Vegas and why it's become such a well-known meme song, and I love that song. But I just feel like Fallout had a lot more variety in terms of good music, honestly, from the radio. There's nothing quite like exploring a bombed out shelter filled with demonic looking zombie ghouls and mutated rats and things that want to kill you, and listening to a 1960s song about, you know, someone's long lost love, or how they're going to be only the lonely and something like that. Or you have a nice rootin' tootin' beat as you shotgun raiders and freeing captives and whatever, and just going absolutely crazy. It's just a very funny vibe that I can't help but love. It's the dichotomy between these two themes of overabundance optimism and incredible dark scarcity. I'm not sure how to put it exactly, but whenever I find games that have no issue having two extremes together, that always is a sign of creativity, that they've had to either they completely complement each other in their oppositeness, or they find a way that they actually mesh together and they actually make a unique, interesting idea. And I think that's what this game really means to me. It's a extreme of opposites that come together to create a cohesive and interesting and entertaining whole. And I feel like, it's those adventurous ideas that kind of announce themselves in the new generation of these kinds of games, and then they kind of, okay, well, we're going to do Fallout because that's what Fallout is. But before this, Fallout was a very it was an isometric RPG that was basically turn-based, and to transform that into a 3D space, it was kind of reinvented, and it was like flesh blood in the machine. And now I feel that blood has grown very, very stale. And, I commend them for doing things like Fallout 76 and trying to make a multiplayer experience in an open world RPG. That's actually very, very cool. But I don't know, it's just things that where if I don't have the time to commit to a solid, adventure that's mostly, the quests aren't going to be anything amazing or interesting. The closest thing I've had to a multiplayer based experience where there's good story has been honestly playing Halo on co-op, or like a Final Fantasy 14 where you can actually play through the story with friends and not feel like it's weird or they're holding you back or anything like that. So that's really cool. Again, I think another really strong part about this game is just exploring and finding places. And what I love is that you always have things that interrupt you before you get to your destination. You might think, okay, there's a thing off in the distance so many yards away, but then there's gonna be something else that interrupts you. You never ever usually travel to your destination or walk to your destination without being interrupted by something or seeing something else off in the distance. And I think that's such a deeply important aspect to this game that they've really, I think, forgotten, especially with games like Starfield. Like, Starfield's a horrendously bad example of what not to do and what they have done well in the past. For example, like, I've seen footage of Starfield because it's a giant empty open world with a planet. Like, nothing happens. You'll walk from your destination and nothing will occur, or you'll, like, it's not like you miss anything. It's just you just walk from place to place and that's it. While in this game, there's always like a rad roach or like some enemies, or maybe there's a band of raiders, or there's something exploding randomly and you're like, oh my god, what's that off in the distance? And you're like, okay, cool, what's this? And then whenever you get to a vault, oh my god, there's the I forgot, the Gary vault. You know, you find the vault side quests in these, and some of them, you know, you discover the story of how everyone went crazy and killed each other, or they spent all their time in VR. And oh my god, the main mission, I forgot about this one, the main mission where you go back to the 60s in VR, and there's this like adult or demonic sounding little girl who's actually torturing these people for eternity, similar to I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Like there's so many memorable quests in this game that are so interesting. There's this one place even where I think it's called Mine Town, where the entire town is just filled with mines, and there's this one guy in the tower who snipes everyone, and you basically could spend the whole thing disarming the mines and going up and killing the guy. And then you read his notes and you find out the whole story of how, you know, he came there, he set up the mines and everything. And so it's, you know, there's light environmental storytelling as well with everything you do. There's one place where it's called like the Republic of Dave, where this one guy claims himself to be president, but because it's a democracy of like 6 people, he's trying to re-win the election, and you can rig it for him or not, or depending on whatever. There's this lady who buys Nuka-Cola Quantum. There's this other really cool side quest where you find this old school violin and you give it to this old lady, and then that unlocks a new radio station where she plays these violin songs solo. You have, you know, the Galaxy News radio guy. There's so many experiences in this game that are so well tailored, and each place has a story waiting to be discovered. That's what I absolutely love about this game. It's not like you just come across an outpost like, oh, this is an outpost, there are enemies to kill. No, there is a story everywhere you go, and there are stories weaved throughout the entire land that are interesting. I remember there's this one place like in the northwest or something that, you know, with a bunch of like satellites or whatever, and you'd open one of the doors, and like every door in the game is a real door, but there's just one door that's a fake door and it says F you. It's just like, okay, like there's so much variety with absolutely everything. I mean, despite it being a lot of copy pasted, you know, interiors, especially office buildings and landscapes and stuff, the ability to make everything slightly different and interesting to the player is something that is so amazing that they did with this game. And, you know, and it's not without it feeling like it doesn't belong in the world. It is kind of out there, but not too out there. But yeah, the whole game's atmosphere is just really, really impressive. And I remember, oh god, I forgot the one thing or the two things I forgot to mention. One thing I really do like about this game is that your father is actually voiced by Liam Neeson, and everyone else's voices in the game are pretty much whatever, and because of that, his voice does really stand out amongst all the other characters. Another thing I forgot is also the followers you can get in this game. Remember, everyone remembers Jericho from Megaton. There's also Fox, Dogmeat. It's also great that Dogmeat wasn't, you could have an additional follower to Dogmeat. There was that one girl who was like a soldier. Oh no, there was Sergeant Lyons or whatever from the Brotherhood of Steel. But there's also like another girl character who had like a hunting rifle or something. That might have been like a quest or something. But it's cool. You do have a variety of followers that come with you, and they can share your inventory, I believe, and they all have really nice dialogue, voice lines. God forbid if they die in the firefight, then you have to restart it. And of course, I think, just speaking about Megaton, I think the one thing that everyone did do was load their save and then go around the city murdering everyone and seeing all the different ways you could kill everyone. I remember, oh my god, another iconic memory from this game is also when you get the mini nuke launcher. That was so stupid and fun. I remember there's also this special piece of power armor. You also get that glows or something. I remember there's like the drunk Russian in like the downtown apartment building that has these two like women with him, and I think if you steal him or kill him, you can get his a special fancy coat that boosts your charisma. There's so many, like every item has a little story to it, and every item is found in a part of the game. You never know what you're going to find, and it's just always something something interesting and slightly ridiculous. But the mini nuke, oh my god, the mini nuke was so much fun. And then you'll find augmented weapons too, like, you know, a rocket launcher that shoots 4 rockets, or a laser rifle that shoots more powerful lasers. And of course, the one that everyone remembers is the multi-mini nuke. So it would shoot like 10 mini nukes at a time. So that really was an end game thing. I remember, you know, going into Megaton and, you know, shooting the multi-mini nuke launcher, you know, right into the town, and just seeing the absolute carnage and destruction that would occur from that. It was too much fun. It's ridiculously fun, and it's stupidly fun too. It's you know, the Grand Theft Auto aspect, when you think, okay, I'm just going to go on a rampage now and see how all the enemies react. And then you'd have things like enemies running into walls and trying to escape, or enemies like walking through fire, and all the silly, ridiculous things that happen. It was so silly. Oh yeah, and there's a laser Gatling gun. There's just so many things in this game that are just like so funny and interesting, and just, you know, coming in contact with all these crazy characters without them being still believable, like, you know, the guy who worships the bomb at Megaton, Tenpenny himself. I mean, I'll be honest, there are stretches of this game which are not fun, where you have to do like stretches of, you know, going through underground subways to find some random thing, and, you know, just you keep walking and walking and walking with the same mole rats or ghouls or whatever, and it feels very samey. But there's other cool things too, like, you know, full active camo that you can find. Like, this game kept surprising me with all the kind of variety that it adds to the experience. That, you know, you could do a stealth build, you could do a melee build, you could do just a hacker and a sleuth build. Yeah. And like I said, you basically, it's a canvas, and you decide how you tackle each situation within a few, you know, limits. There's, you know, the one answer where you do the right thing, the bad thing, and I forgot to mention there is a karma system in this game. So if you steal things, kill people, mistreat the innocent, then you have a little karma meter that will tell, you know, certain enemies will be hostile to you, or certain allies won't, you know, ally with you. I think you need certain karmic alignment to partner with certain individuals. And something that kept the DLC fresh too is, you know, you also get a new variety of weapons and location and items, and each one was always like interesting. I think you had like the what do you call it, a lever action rifle, and a short barrel shotgun. And the Swamp DLC, you got, I know, alien weapons and Mothership Zeta. And the great thing about the radio is that you can just turn it off if it gets too much for you. And of course you have, you know, the whole Enclave and their whole backstory. And then there are things too, like you'll have the town, and it's like, hey, we need to repair the water main or something, but your repair skills aren't high enough. You can go out and do a few missions, level up, and come back. And so there's always like a thing to always come back. The main thing I think everyone also remembers is Moira's Moira, all right, she talks like that too. Moira's little adventure wasteland guide where she'll send you off on suicidal missions to get little information that you bring back to her so she can write her guide, and then eventually she writes this little book or whatever. And so, you know, she'll say, oh well, don't worry, it'll be easy, and it's always something incredibly difficult and almost gets you killed, which is always funny. Oh yeah, I forgot the perks in this game when you're leveling up are just, some of them are just, you know, really crazy things, like you can assassinate people in their sleep, like the lady killer. You have seduce, like dialogue and certain you know, scenarios. You can, oh yeah, Mr. Sandman perk, you can kill people in their sleep and get extra EXP. There's Bloody Mess perk where you do 10% more damage, but people turn into just, you know, blood goblets when you kill them. You get other things like I remember like level 30 perk was like sunlight vampirism, that when you stand in the sun you basically automatically heal. Or the other top level 30 perk is that every time your health goes below like 30%, you trigger an atomic explosion around your body, which I think was just the funniest, coolest thing. Oh, and of course the one that everyone remembers is the mysterious stranger. So it'll be a weird thing where you'll be in vats and you'll be kind of low on health or something, and you use all of your VATS points on shooting the enemy, and suddenly this guy out of nowhere will give you like an extra 2 shots with his 44 Magnum revolver. There's so many interesting creative things in this game, and I think I'm just going to keep saying that until this review is up. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. Except that, you know, there are certain things where I know there's like a library in the game where if you sell them your books, they give you way more money for it as well. So sometimes you know, don't want to hold on. You want to hold on to certain things so you can sell them later and figure out what to do with them later. Of course, you have certain weapons you want to, you know, repair them via durability and using other weapons to repair other weapons so that you get, you know, the best kind of thing. It does kind of suck though, I think, in these games that when you hit the max level, you no longer get EXP, and that always kind of sucks. It always feels like, oh, well, I've lost a huge incentive for keeping going forward. And you always want to have little things for the player, literally visually or in the back of their mind for their stats and skills to go forward. And I played this Bethesda game like the ones I play, a lot of the other ones. I usually do enough side quests until I'm like top level, and then I do the last quest in the main story and things like that. It's always very rewarding, very cool. And the ending of the game is something that people do like nitpick about, because there's this whole thing where you have to go into this radiation chamber and they're like, well, one of my party members is immune to radiation, why doesn't he go? And it's like, come on, man. It's just, you know, it's the narrative that's important, not the actual nitpicking of it. And plus, not everyone has that party member, I think, you know, for that part. So yeah, that's how it is. But yeah, I think Fallout 3 is an amazing RPG. I think it's a great way, or a great entry point into the series, because it was designed to be that. It was, you know, designed for consoles and for a new generation of gamers. And I'm kind of shocked myself at how much I recall all this information and just all my experiences with the game. I thought it would all be kind of lost to time and be just a black hole of lost time, but I remember the distinct experiences I had with this game, and I think that's, if anything, that's a sign of quality of a good game. Anyway, guys, I think that's it. I hope Fallout improves in the future, or you know, at least maybe has smaller, more interesting little niche experiences for us. But yeah, I think that's it. Fallout 3, one of the classic games, I would say. All right, guys, take care.